Gentlemen, thank you for attending today's meeting. I want to start out by giving a little history as to why we are where we are today. And to do that, I have to go back to March of 2017. On March 13th of 2017, one of our branches put on their St. Patty's Day luncheon. Unfortunately, that luncheon was not as successful as they had hoped, or we as a organization had hoped, because one of the members got food poisoning and died, and 7 other members were sick or hospitalized because of it. And the person who was the caterer—
Is he on here?
Page 7 or 8.
The person who was the caterer who was a member of the branch, turned out not to have the proper county health requirements as far as licensing or food handling, and was actually doing the lunches out of his own home kitchen. That resulted in February of 2019, almost 2 years later, just before the statute of limitations, in a lawsuit that was filed against the branch, which had approximately a little over 100 members. That lawsuit was turned over to our insurance carrier, which was the Philadelphia company, and they tendered a defense for us on our behalf. But as a result of it, we were caught with our pants down, so to speak. We didn't have the necessary paperwork and follow up to check on our caterers to make sure that they were licensed, that they had insurance and the necessary things to protect our organization. So, as most of you know, we followed up with a Form 63 and 64, which required that if you had an outside caterer, that you provided the information to our organization that they were insured, that the caterer had proper insurance. We came up for, in 2020, we came up for insurance renewal, and our insurance company said that they were not going to renew our insurance. So Craig Hoffines, who is our insurance chairman, went on the market to see what would be available for insurance coverage, and only one other company was willing to write a policy of insurance for officers, directors, and the members. And that policy was 3 times our current premium, which is $50,000. So the $150,000 was quite a large increase in our insurance coverage. So we were faced with the dilemma of being without insurance. And without insurance, we jeopardize our limited liability of our members and officers and directors in case a branch is sued. So they could go after our insurance, and if they exceeded it. Thank you, gentlemen. I'll do the best I can. Apparently, all I've got is the audio side of it. Our insurance at that time was $50,000. When Craig tried to shop for insurance, it was the closest. We only had one other bid to write our insurance coverage, and that was $150,000. So it was quite scary. Thank God for President Ed Benson. He decided to call the president of the Philadelphia company who writes our policy, and with his remarkable charms was able to convince him to maintain our insurance
and allow us to continue in place. The end of this year, 2020, we were able to settle that lawsuit, but the demand at that time was for $1 million. They were asking for policy limits on the lawsuit, and in addition, there was an additional lawsuit that had been filed for a hazmat claim. The surviving widow of Mr. Whiteshores had a hazmat crew come in and clean her home because her husband got sick after the St. Patty's Day luncheon, and that was an additional $50,000. So we were looking at $1,050,000 in demands by the plaintiffs to settle this lawsuit. The lawsuit was able to be mediated and resolved, but we paid out as the insurance company paid out $50,000 for the underlying lawsuit and $1,000 for the hazmat claim, a subrogation claim, because she turned it into her own insurance company. Plus, there was about $52,000 worth of attorney's fees, not including the costs that were involved of 33,000 pages of medical records involved. So we spent in excess of $102,000 to handle that lawsuit that was filed in 2019 for the incident of March 13th, 2017. We were basically caught with our pants down. And what we did at that time as an organization, I believe it was incoming period of time for President Derek Southern, is we decided to follow up and put together some remedial things that we could do to protect ourselves. That is to verify that the caterers had insurance, that they named the SIR organization as additional insured. Those were our Form 63s and 64s. This year, after the lawsuit was settled, we were notified on March 8th that our insurance would be renewed for the upcoming 2021 year, which was great news. However, there was a caveat or a condition on that, and that was that there would be a reduction in our insurance coverage for and excluding claimed losses due to viruses or bacteria or communicable disease, including COVID-19. And that would go into effect on May 1st, 2021. So in other words, this Saturday is when it takes effect, that we would no longer have coverage for these type of claims. Our other insurance would still remain in full force and effect. So if you were out in the golf course and hit a golf ball and hit somebody on an opposite hole, and with the golf ball, you would, as an organization, we would be covered. So the board decided right away, once we got our notice on March 8th, that we needed to do something about this. We didn't want to get caught with our pants down as we did in the Whitehorse versus Martin case with the caterers. So we started working on trying to create some protocols and some waivers that would protect us in the event of somebody got sick. And that had been worked on starting on the 24th of March. We had a special board meeting, and we contacted and had participated with our insurance chairman, Craig Hoffines, and our legal advisor, Alan Melanco, to come up with a set of protocols and a waiver. We circulated the drafts of those documents amongst the 11 board members, and which included all the officers and directors, as well as the some of the state chairmen of the activities such as golf and whatnot. These were circulated over a month period of time with comments, criticisms, and concerns being addressed on those documents. We then met again on April 12th and went over those protocols as to where we are and what we were going to do as far as protecting us. And what we decided is that we were going to take a belt and suspenders type of approach to our protection. And what I mean by that is that we were going to make sure we didn't get caught with our pants down. We were going to have double protection. We were going to have the suspenders and the belt all in place. And that was going to be that, you know, there would be protocols as to what you would need to do to reopen under the new insurance provisions. And there would be waivers to try to protect our branches, because all it would do would take one claim and we would possibly be looking at not having coverage, insurance coverage going forward. Why is insurance coverage so important? Well, in California, although we're protected as volunteer officers and directors from individual liability and members, we cannot be willful or wanton or grossly negligent in our conduct as to what we do and how we protect our members, which means that if we fail to adequately address these issues, that the branches could, their individual members could be named in lawsuits going forward. And the key being that you had to act like a corporation. We had to act like a corporation, and we also had to have insurance. So, you know, we understand that not everyone is vaccinated. As of April 7th, it was reported that 50% of all adults over 65 have been vaccinated, which means there's about 46% that haven't been vaccinated. So the board decided and unanimously voted that we would follow these protocols and waivers that have been sent out to the different branches and to our activities chairman to do something about protecting us. We wanted to get some guidance, and we looked to the Masonic Order, what they were doing. We looked to what the Giants were doing, the baseball team, to the Warriors, to what UC and Stanford universities are doing in the Cal State college systems, and tried to follow up on that. We also looked to the California Department of Health that issued on the 15th of this month their standard for meetings where there has been fully vaccinated individuals as to how they can meet and where they can meet, whether they can meet without masks and without social distancing. Those guidelines were provided to me by Craig Hoffines, and those can be shared with the branches as far as giving you some insight as to what's going on. This is the most recent data that we got on this, having been basically 11 days ago. We also considered the HEPA requirements, whether the board considered whether we would have to address those issues, which we did, and we got an opinion from our legal advisor as well as a California legislative analyst about HEPA, and we were basically told that HEPA only applies to covered entities and their business associates, and what they mean by that is health plans, healthcare clearinghouses, healthcare providers that conduct healthcare transactions electronically. Now, one of the guidelines that has come out on the State of California Health and Human Services guidelines of the 15th is that fully vaccinated people can freely meet with other vaccinated individuals, including indoor activities without wearing masks or physical distancing. Craig, I don't know if you're on the line, but in calling in, you might be able to address the further description of this since you provided it to me. Why is it so important that we do these protocols and waivers? It's because we want to maintain our individual liability. That liability being that they can't sue, this branch that went through the wrongful death. The reason they were protected from individual liability is because they acted like a corporation, and they were protected under the California Corporation Code Section 5231C and the Volunteer Protection Act of 1977, which is a federal statute that says that volunteer directors are not compensated and that have insurance are protected from individual liability. Now, I know that some people may not like the fact that they're having to report the fact that they're vaccinated, but if you think about, the kids going to school, they have to be vaccinated for communicable diseases, diphtheria, chickenpox, measles, mumps, rubella, polio, hepatitis B, etc. I think that we have to all realize that protection is a necessary element for keeping our organization going, and hopefully these requirements are not going to be long-lived, but none of us thought we would be doing this 14 months after the executive order by the governor shutting things down. But we've been able to open golf, and with those protocols, been able to function. We will hopefully be able to do the same thing on the reopening of indoor activities and still protect ourselves. Now, all we're saying is that, this is it's like crossing at an intersection. We're saying you can cross, but please go with the green light. Don't walk against the red light. We need to protect ourselves. So that's why the board unanimously adopted the protocols and waivers that I think Derek has probably put up on the board by now. I'll take any questions you may have.
Stu, I haven't put up the waivers at all yet. If you want them one at a time, I can do so. And further,
that'd be great.
Further, I'm going to suggest that if people have questions, they find the raise your hand button, which again, it depends a little bit on the version of software. It's typically under participants or under, where the hell, under, I've got an iPad with somewhat different controls.
It's under reactions on the latest version.
Okay, under reactions, yeah. And what happens on the list of participants, the people are listed in the order that they raised their hand. Do you want any specific protocol up first, Stu, or should we go to questions?
I would go to questions, and also guys can understand. I get emails from the branches, and I answer each and every one of those emails that come in to me about the branch concerns about what they can do and how they can reopen. My email is Stu Williams at Lake. It's on the state website, and at gmail.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions. If you don't get a chance, or if you have additional questions, just send me an email. I will get back to you.
Okay, first question goes to Carl Mason, Area 7 Governor. Carl, unmute and
Yes.
speak.
I'm trying. There we are. Okay. By the way, I was the little sir at the time at Branch 88 when they were sued. We did do everything right, I might add, and the 50,000 was more of a settlement than it was to indicate we did anything wrong. But anyway, we're getting back to that. I just wanted to say that I understand the intent of these rules, but I'm afraid they're going to have a real negative impact. I mean, I have shared these with my branches, and I've gotten reactions anywhere from very grudging acceptance to flat out anger. In fact, one of the organizations has actually decided to cancel their bowling instead of complying with them, because it would mean they would have to kick members out of their bowling league. These rules are perceived by many as being kind of arbitrary, and going way beyond what is required by the state and the local government. I mean, well, I understand
Carl,
that there's,
Carl, let me ask you this. What do you think is required by the state and local government?
well, that is that there be I've read all the requirements. I looked at the requirements that came out on the 15th. The requirements says that it does not exclude the use of well, anyway, let me put it this way. You can have vaccinated as well as unvaccinated people, as long as the vaccinated people are separated. And I mean, we're basically excluding anywhere from 5 to maybe 20% of our members. That just seems bad. We're going to impact recruiting. What if somebody shows up and we can't let them in because they don't have the card or they don't want to sign a waiver? I mean, it's going to lower morale, and I think it's going to really result in the cancellation of some activities. I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that we can't do something. Pardon?
As I said, Carl, hopefully this is not going to be a long and protracted situation. As we head and we increase from 54% of adults over the age of 65 are
it's actually 82% now.
Well, that's
it's actually
better.
Up to 82% now. Last I saw. Yeah.
This was as of the 7th of April when we were documenting it. But as you know, and you can probably verify, the amount of work that you had to go through as a branch to protect yourself from liability. At one point in time, they were talking about having to close you down totally and sending whatever money you had in your branch bank account to resolve the lawsuit.
Well, yeah,
thankfully that didn't happen. We were able to get through this. We got caught with our pants down because the fellow that was a member of your branch had basically withheld the information about being licensed, hadn't followed the Contra Costa County requirements of having food handling thing. The amount of documents your branch had to produce. And I guarantee you that had a chilling effect on your membership, not knowing whether you were going to come out of the other side or that they were going to be going after you guys individually. That's why these things are in place. That's
okay.
why
I'm not arguing about. Okay, I understand that. I'm not defending what happened in the past. I mean, I think that's done. I'm saying that the way these current regulations rules are presented, it's kind of negative. I mean, having to show the card. Why can't people just? I've had a lot of people say that this shows disrespect and
Carl, let me answer that the same way. Your branch relied upon Mr. Martin's representation that he was licensed and able to perform catering services, but in fact he was not. If somebody comes in and
I can't argue with attorneys, Stu.
Can we not rehash what happened 4 years ago, and let's talk about what the present situation is? And if we wait for Stu to respond to each and every speaker as we go along here, we're never going to get off this phone.
Okay.
Yeah,
I suggest that we make some kind of allowance to allow unvaccinated people to participate in some of the activities. As long as they are set in a different area, they meet all the state requirements, the mask, distancing, separate areas. I don't see any problem with that. And
Carl, there is a way of resolving that, and it's built right into the protocols, and that is that if you have a recent COVID test within 72 hours, you can participate with the other members that are vaccinated.
Well, I think, Stu, that's not really realistic. People aren't going to, every time they go to go to the bowling, they're going to have to go out and get a test. Anyway, okay, I'll shut up now.
Stu,
Vince Mark.
Hang on. There's a comment from Clint Collier, says he wants to express the exact opposite of the coin to Carl's statement. He's vaccinated, has no problem announcing it, but I don't want to meet with non-vaccinated individuals. So that's the opposite side.
Yes, I would like to come in.
One question, Derek, how do we raise our hand if there's no raise your hand on the panel here on the dashboard?
There's two places where it could be. One is under reactions on the right-hand side at the bottom.
All right.
And the other one in the older software is under participants, I think it is. It depends which system you're using. Next one would be Ron Cassano. Ron?
Can I expand upon that, please? We're all seem to be worried about the people who have not gotten vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. I have no problem proclaiming it. I have no problem proofing it if somebody needs it. I don't want to meet with people who are non-vaccinated. So if you're going to start allowing non-vaccinated people to attend the meetings, you're going to lose people like me. Because I will not go out to lunch, dinner, or anything else with non-vaccinated people at this point. Wow. And I don't consider the tests anywhere near adequate. They take 3 to 4 days to get the results back. You can become very infected in 2 to 3 days.
Now, you already got your inoculation. What are you worried about?
Okay, can we just not keep chucking in comments, please? Otherwise it gets a little out of hand.
Can I get my 2 cents in?
We've got 198 people who can contribute. Next person on the list, Ron Cassano, please, branch 8.
I'm Big Sur of branch 8, and we've been discussing this of how we get the vaccine recorded, our members that have been vaccinated, and we have come up with our own program that basically we're looking to get a signed certificate from the members. We're via email and or mail, and return the signed waiver and the signed certificate that they have been vaccinated and add that to our database, rather than attempting to try to get 300 guys to show their vaccination cards either via email or some other day. Otherwise, we'd be going months trying to chase down who's vaccinated and who's not. So my proposal is that we would send out the certificate along with the waiver and get people to say, I've been vaccinated, here's the date, and sign off. And then we add that to our database so that we have it, so that we avoid this big scramble of having to physically look at the cards. And that seemed to be very palatable to our members that we've already talked to. And so I'm throwing that out rather than having in the protocol says you must show it and look at it. With our 58 activities to do that, and with almost 300 members, we came up with this simple system, and I cannot see why it wouldn't be viable if we got a signed certificate from the individual that they have been vaccinated. And we put that in our database, and we could do this quite quickly. In fact, are ready to go with it, with the software and the stuff that we already have at our branch. So that's kind of my suggestion. Is that a good alternative?
I agree.
I think
could live with.
That's the protocol that your branch wants to establish, Ron.
Yes.
And that you feel comfortable in the verifications, and none of your members are going to be dishonest about the fact that they have been vaccinated. I think that would be appropriate under the circumstances.
Oh, thank you. That
Great.
solves the problem. We can get ready on this. We can go to press. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Bob Baker, please. You may need to unmute first.
Yeah, I just did that. I have a question about how the protocols apply to one of the primary activities of Ranch 33, which is the country club airs. And I believe it may be a pertinent question for some other kinds of activities also. The country club airs are a men's choral group and band. Before the pandemic hit, we would get together weekly to rehearse, and usually at least once a week, give a musical performance at venues throughout the Sacramento County area, primarily at assisted living facilities. And my question really is, once we are able to perform again, because the state and the county say that it's okay for us to do so, which means that we would need to be able to perform without social distancing and face masks among our group. How will the protocols apply to the people who are residents at those facilities in our audience? And I've looked at the protocols pretty carefully. My conclusion is that those residents are not attendees at a branch activity as defined in the protocol, and we will not be required to make each of the audience members prove to us that they are fully vaccinated and have to sign a SIR waiver.
I'm inclined to agree with you. Yes.
And what I wanted to know is there a way that we can get a confirmation from the state SIR level in writing that that is a correct interpretation of
if you send me an email, I will forward it on to our legal advisor and respond to you as soon as I get it back.
Okay, that's good. That's what I wanted to hear. That would also save the bowlers from having to go to everyone else who happened to be in the bowling alley at the time and get them to sign a SIR waiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I understand that. You know, I want you to understand, I'm not fighting the reopening. I'm just trying to establish a way to protect us, because all it's going to do is take one lawsuit and we're going to lose our insurance. And if we lose our insurance, we're all in trouble.
Okay, and by the way, we don't have a problem within Branch 33 of requiring the attendees, for example, at luncheons to all be vaccinated. We've already decided that we would probably have our own requirement like that if the state weren't requiring it. And certainly all of our performers on the country club airs will have to be fully vaccinated.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So next up is Lee Lamp. Please unmute and speak.
So thanks for this opportunity to speak. The biggest concern that members of my branch, including my BEC, have, and folks that have given me feedback is, you know, the requirement to show proof of vaccine is a violation of constitutional religious freedoms. It's an overreach. I'm very concerned about security precautions for the information and the documentation that go along with that. Stu, you said that, you know, when your kids go to school, they have to, you know, show proof of vaccine. And however, all of that information is contained within a secure program, a secure system that that cannot be witnessed or viewed by others, that don't have an absolute need to know. We're talking about the fact that already I was on a state golf meeting the other day, and they said, okay, well, this person needs to have a copy of everything, and this person will subsequently need to have a copy of everything. And oh, well, this tournament that's being run by this person, he'll need to have a copy of everything. And pretty soon we've got everybody's proof of vaccine and waivers and well, all over the place. And there's no sense of security. There's nothing there. Again, there are some religious issues that are brought to bear that it goes against their religious position to get a vaccine, period. And there are provisions throughout the law that allow those provisions to be circumvented, and there are, if you will, waivers for everything. The waiver itself states, just signing the waiver means that, okay, you've got to go get the vaccine, or you've got to show a test every single time to do any activity. And I say any because, well, maybe bocce ball is completely outside. However, I would venture a guess that every place that plays bocce ball has a bar or a facility to go inside and have a lunch in association with that activity. Golf, we've said in the state golf protocol that we can get together afterwards at the course and enjoy a beverage or lunch. That means that it's going to be inside most likely, and to state that, well, just meet outside doesn't work when it's 105 degrees in Reading when you get done. They want to go inside and enjoy themselves. And the management,
if I can answer that,
is going to be an absolute nightmare.
Lee, if I can answer that, when your golf is over, if you decide to go in and have lunch or a cocktail, the activity of golfing has already been completed. So this is beyond the scope of that activity. So that is on the, not everybody is required to go in and have lunch or a cocktail. Some guys may want to do it. Some guys may not want to do it. So that's strictly a decision outside of SIRS.
Well, then the state golf protocol needs to be rewritten, because it was added. It was initially stated that all players must leave the course, period. Then we changed it to allow this activity to take place. Bottom line, I'm going to tell you right now, branch 129, there's a whole lot of people concerned about the overreach, and we have grave concerns about the ability to that we will likely lose a considerable number of members. And I'm just going to I'm putting that out there, that the waiver wording needs to be changed, and the requirement to show proof of a vaccine is overreach. Even those members that have received the vaccine have a concern about showing proof of receiving the vaccine. And
Lee,
that's where it's at.
Lee, if I can address that very briefly, I think you will agree that you feel more protected if somebody is vaccinated in any particular activity that you may participate in. The point is,
go ahead.
The point I'm trying to make is that if we don't verify the vaccinations, then we may be grossly negligent. If you go to a baseball game, you go to the Giants baseball game, when you walk up to the gate, they say, okay, Lee Lamp, have you been vaccinated? You say yes, and they let you go through. That's not how it works with them. You have to verify. And they're doing the same thing we are doing. We're trying to protect our membership, from a potential lawsuit.
And I can.
If you want to send me something, Lee, because you and I have had numerous emails back and forth. I am all for getting things open, and that's one of the things that's very important to me. But I also want to do it safely. If we're crossing the street and say only crossing the green light, that's reasonable. But if you say, hey, it's my constitutional right and religious right to cross whenever I want to, regardless of whether the light is green or red, that's not protecting everyone. So what we've got to do is we got to, on balance, figure what is necessary to do to protect the entire organization. One lawsuit and we're in trouble.
And you know what? I understand that and respect that, but I'm sharing with you the views of.
And I understand it. And if you will put something in an email to me, I will promise you I will follow it off to our insurance committee chairman and our legal advisor for their consideration.
Okay, Stu, we've got 12 more hands up at the moment. So if we can keep it moving, Mike Windsor is next, please. If you'd like to unmute.
Yeah, I'm unmuting, Derek. Thank you, Stu. You and I have exchanged at least one email, and I hear what everybody is saying. Our branch has the same concerns. I've already reconciled to the fact that we'll probably lose about 25. If we can hold it at 25%, I'll consider ourselves lucky that we will lose the members. But I hope that they will come back again when this pandemic crisis is over. I have two questions, and I think you may have answered the first one. But the first one concerns the privacy of the records when people provide proof of vaccination. I think you've answered it and said because we're a club, we're not a business, and therefore we wouldn't necessarily be held accountable for the to the HIPAA regulations. Is that fair to say?
Right. The HIPAA regulations apply to covered entities, and and their business associates, and we don't fall in. And we've received a legal opinion and legislative analysis on that issue. We're not a health plan. We're not a healthcare provider, and we're not doing it electronically. As a healthcare provider. So HIPAA does not apply to us as an organization.
That's great. That's great to know. The second point I had, which we picked up on the protocol, was regarding conspicuously absent. Is when we go to an outside luncheon venue, there's no requirement that servers and food preparers have vaccination, proof of vaccination. Have there been any discussions about that at all? Or is it left up to the individual branch to determine what they feel comfortable with?
We have had discussions on that, and I think the consensus of the opinion from the board, because we circulated all these concerns, we gave all the regional directors and officers an opportunity to address these, and this was some of the issues that came up. We felt it was a branch decision how they wanted to handle the venue where they were meeting.
Okay, I think that answers the question. Then there's no state requirement that we get proof of vaccination.
There is none.
Okay,
none at this time.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up then is Milt Smith. If you like.
Yeah, I just had a quick kind of a question / comment. I'm the state travel chair, and we're trying to get launched back into doing some traveling. So, and it's looking to me like we're going to have an individual. We already have about 4 forms you have to fill out every time anybody goes anywhere outside the country or even inside the country. But for people who travel outside the country, I'm thinking that I'm going to need to add something to an existing form or create another form, which I hate to do, that can certify that people have proven the protocols as required by CERBS. Now, given we already know that some of the ships that are going to be doing cruises are going to require that you prove that you've been vaccinated. If you can't prove you've been vaccinated, sorry, you don't get to go. And and there are countries that have been doing that for a long time. I mean, we've all traveled. We're all old enough to remember when you had to prove you had certain inoculations when you went into certain countries, and if you couldn't, you didn't get to go. So I'm trying to figure out a way to work with the branches so that we don't have to create a bunch of forms at the branch level, or we can use the forms at the branch level to cover any kind of activities inside the continental United States, say. But for foreign travel, something that happens shortly before people travel, say shortly is like 6 months. And then I'm looking down the line and wondering what happens if we're still doing this. And I know you've said we may not need to be doing this a year from now. But what happens when we get into the situation of people needing to have a booster, and then do they have to prove that they've had their booster? I'm anticipating trying to probably use some of the rules that these cruise companies come out with, because they will also cover us. Anyway, that's just my comment. And I guess my question is, who do I work with to design these forms? I know Craig is pretty good. I just don't want to design a form and then show it to our insurance company and they say, sorry, we don't like that form. You got to have a better form. Is there a particular person I need to work with for that?
Yeah, I'm happy to work with you. And I think you've already worked with Alan Melanco.
Yeah, we've been working together on some other problems.
Yeah, on some other issues that we worked as well. We want to help you get through this thing. This is all started water for all of us, as to where we're doing. None of us thought we were going to be where we are now, but we have to deal with it. And, as far as COVID, we tried to see if there was COVID insurance that we could buy. When our policy was had a reduction for the coverage in it. We said, okay, can we buy a policy that will cover it? There's nothing available. There's 14 states in the United States that have safe harbor provisions to protect nonprofit organizations from any claim for communicable disease, including COVID. But California is not one of them. And the reason they don't have it, and I'll be perfectly frank, is because the California Trial Lawyers Association is such a strong entity that they want to be able to sue the hell out of organizations like ours to try to make money. So, we're going to work through this thing, and we will get through it, but we just have to be a little cautious as we go. Lastly, I want to express my condolences for Tom Molinari, who is our state travel chairman, who passed away. I was very sad to hear that.
Okay, thank you, Stu. Next up is Craig's iPad, branch 71 from Moraga, I believe. So Craig,
yes.
If you like to speak up.
I believe I'm off of mute. Basic question underlying all of this. Our insurance coverage says that as of May 1, we are no longer covered for infectious things and COVID. Is that correct?
It says that they renewed our policy with a reduction in coverage, excluding claimed losses due to viruses or bacteria or communicable diseases, including COVID-19, starting May 1st, 2021.
Okay, so regardless of anything that we do, any protocols that we set up, we are not covered. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
But the reason we have those protocols is to protect the members from individual liability.
I understand
what
that.
I mean by that. Okay.
What you mean by that?
What I mean by that is, if, let's say, hypothetically, branch 421 gets sued, and they say, hey, one of our guys caught COVID because somebody came into the meeting that was sick and passed it out. So the lawyer asked, what did you do to try to protect your members? And our answer is we had strict protocols, vaccination testing, and waivers of liability that were in place to try to protect our members. We believe, and we've been advised, and both by our insurance chairman and by our legal advisor, that this would protect us from gross negligent claims or willful and wanton conduct by the board of directors.
Okay, as
Now-
I understand it, as I understand our legal process, anybody can sue for just about anything.
Yeah,
And
that's
we as
true.
members are not protected from that kind of approach. And
Well,
I think
that's not true because each of the branches are a 501c4 nonprofit mutual benefit corporation in California. We have separate corporations for each of those branches. And nonprofit corporations are protected under the corporation code against individual liability. You know, I can give you the code sections here. Corporation Code 5231C, Corporation Code 5047.55239, the Volunteer Protection Act of 1977 protects individual directors from individual liability.
Okay. Would you be so kind as to send that out, please? Those citations?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Okay, moving on. Next up, Jerry Strain, if you'd like to unmute, please, Jerry, speak.
Yeah, thanks, Derek. Stu, I just had a question that nobody seemed to cover is, what do we do about people who already had contracted COVID and got over it? They don't have to have proof of vaccination, they can still sign a waiver, but what about that portion?
You know, that issue is pending right now before Alan because it was raised recently, and Alan has agreed to address that issue. Alan Melanco, our legal advisor, because there are a lot of little nuances in this thing, Jerry, that we're trying to make sure that we cover. I want to address what Carl Mason is saying about having a chilling effect on recruiting members. What if guys caught what they call long-termers that have COVID, that now have built up immunity against it? What do we do in that regard? And Alan is addressing that issue, Jerry.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. That was basically the question I had.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, then. Thank you, Jerry. Next one, Sam Beret, Big Sur, Branch 116. Please unmute.
Yes. Our BEC members are concerned. The question, I think it may have come before, but will the liability or D&O insurance cover our directors and officers for negligence and mistakes if there is a COVID-related lawsuit?
I think the California Corporation Code covers your officers and directors as long as they are not grossly negligent or willful and wanton in their conduct and have done the necessary corporate governance requirements. That is, hold meetings, maintain minutes, have election of officers. Those are the things that are necessary to do to protect your BEC members.
Stu, can you send us an email with regard to that question? Because
yes,
we have a lot of BEC members that are scared, and we need to make a decision by in a few days.
That's fine, and I will send that to you. I can actually forward a previous email by Alan Melanco who addressed that issue to another branch, and I will just copy you on it so that you have his opinion. And I think Craig Hoffine has also addressed it as well, our insurance chairman.
Okay, thank you, Stu.
You're welcome.
To preempt a question that may come up, Stu, if we're sending out things to individual branches, can they be put up on the website as a package of stuff so that anybody can then review it?
Absolutely. We're we're in this all together. You know, it's as Dean and I talked about, Dean Steichen, this is uncharted water for all of us. You know, we want to get through it and we want to keep our membership, but we also want to be protected. I'll be glad to do that.
Great. Okay. Next up, Alan Fitzgerald, also from branch 116. If you'd like to unmute.
Yes, I have a couple things and mainly a comment. I just follow up with what Milt was saying about travel. We've got 2 trips planned and we have to be vaccinated in order to board those ships. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no religious exemptions, nothing. And also Cal State, Cal and Stanford have put out the same edicts for students coming on, faculty, and people who go on a campus. So they're going to have to be vaccinated. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have to show vaccination. And if you don't want to show it, then you're not going to go to a lot of places. The other thing I have is that that last comment about the, if you've had COVID, do you need to get vaccinated? Our personal experience within our own family who live in Michigan is they got COVID. And then later, after they were finished, they were cured. Then later they got antibody testing and they did not have signs of any antibiotics in their system, which means they need to be vaccinated because they goes away. So don't hang your hat on the fact that you've had it, that you're safe. That's not necessarily true. And that's my only comment.
Yeah, good comment. Good comment.
Yeah, I'll add to that one for you. My daughter is a doctor up in Washington State. She got COVID very early and she's been vaccinated, had both vaccinations. And she's in a clinical study to track what sort of antibodies are going on in the body after you've had COVID. Anyway, next, Jim Gragg, Big Sur, branch 98. If you like to unmute and speak.
Yes, thank you. My question is, I assume that digital signatures are going to be accepted, you know, when we're using technologies like DocuSign or Adobe Sign, where the members can submit that electronically to us. Am I correct in that assumption?
If your branch BEC adopts that manner of recordation of the signatures, then that's appropriate.
Thank you.
But again, make sure it's in the minutes, right?
Absolutely. In writing.
Right. Trevor Hughes, you're up next. I'm not sure which branch.
Yes, thank you. A quick question. It seems to me that we're being asked as an organization to rectify or validate that people have had the vaccination on their own word. If we did accept that without seeing proof of their card of vaccination, would we then be accused possibly by the lawyers of not following protocol or not exhibiting discretion in that regard? Would we be liable? Because I agree that the importance of responsibility here is extreme, particularly if it destroys the organization.
Yes, sir. I agree with you. And this is the suspenders of our argument about having a belt and suspenders. We need to also verify this information, because if we just go in and say, have you been vaccinated? And the guy says, oh yeah, then we are not discharging our responsibility.
Right. No due diligence.
That's correct. So yes, we need to verify it. We have to have a manner in which we verify it.
The other thing is, as a medical person, I think it's not able to, one is not able to say that one is totally resistant to COVID if the CDC, etc., claim that it's only the vaccination is only 95% effective.
Well, as I started out before the Zoom meeting failed me, this is insurance driven. we are creating firewalls to protect our members, both as to getting sick and also to being sued. So it's a parallel pathway that we're following at this point in time. And we're not going to get caught with our pants down.
Appreciate your knowledge, Stu.
Okay,
My
next
pleasure.
up, we've got 8 more to go. Dick Fyten, I'm not sure which branch. If you like to unmute, Dick, and speak. Going once, going twice, Dick. You want to speak? Okay, next, Stan Barkey, branch 35. Would you like to unmute and speak, please?
Yes. My question has to do with clarification about which activities this waiver and proof of vaccination apply to. It appears that it's only indoor activity. Am I correct in that? So that things like hiking, biking, bocce ball, and golf would not require...
Dan, you're absolutely correct. And it's nice to hear from you again. Yes, you're correct.
Thank you.
Okay, if that was a quick one. Next up is John.
Wait, that's
Cox.
not what the waiver says. The direction says the waiver has to be for indoor and outdoor.
Well, we also have existing protocols for outdoor activities in place already. You know, this is just a culmination on top of that. So, you know, you have protocols for outdoor activities already in place.
No, that's not what they're saying.
But that's, yeah, you can't, I'm sorry, but you can't do that. Your instructions tells us what has to be done.
But then, you know, well, I'm just telling you how the board interpreted. Why don't you send me an email and I'll get a clarification from the board. I cannot speak entirely for the board, but I'll get your clarification and get right back to you.
Well, it's state protocol number 7 on your document.
Yes, sir. I'll get right back to you on it.
Okay.
I need to get back to you. That's why I asked you to send me an email.
Yeah, before I call on John Cox to unmute, there are a number of questions have been submitted in chat. I'll go down those in after the questions are finished to make sure we've covered everybody's questions. Okay, John Cox, if you like to unmute and speak. John?
Yes, I'm here.
Good.
Okay, today we had golf, and of course the protocols came out, I believe it was last Thursday, and so we golfed today. I got everyone to go ahead and sign the waivers. We're keeping a list. We're going to have our BEC, our secretary, go ahead and note these things. My question is going forward, and our newsletter comes out the end of the month. I'm going to be sending out a fairly long, it's probably going to be more like a book, but my article for the newsletter is going to basically reiterate what has been sent out by State Serve. My question is going to be, and I'm hoping that these people will be willing to mail in until we resume luncheons, and I'm shooting for June for luncheon for our branch. And by the way, it's 117. So in any event, my question is, we use the Elks as our vendor, and I haven't at least seen anything that spells out what I should be asking the manager of the Elks that we use in terms of his personnel, who, by the way, are all volunteers, in terms of their having been vaccinated. And what rights do I have to ask for that? What can we demand from them? I'm unclear as to that.
This is going to be up to your BEC to decide what requirements you have of the vendor. If your vendor is like my branch 149 also meets at the Elks Club. And my understanding is that they're requiring vaccinations of their staff.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, looks like Dick Fyten. Did we catch you before? If you like to speak.
Yes, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
a comment and then a couple questions. I recently flew to Phoenix, Arizona, and then drove down and crossed the border into Mexico. My experience was that when I went through TSA, they scanned my vaccination card. I don't know but they put it under some kind of scanner. So I think you're going to have a vaccination card in order to fly wherever you're going to go. We had no problem getting across the border with our vaccination cards either. The question I have is with regard to this, what the state has to protect boards of directors. If somebody was to sue we boards of directors that are not covered by the insurance company, we're going to see some terrific lawyer bills. Whether we are protected or not, somebody's going to take a shot at suing us. How are those costs going to be covered?
Our state board has created, or in the process of creating, a defense fund which we can loan to the branches to defend themselves in the event of a lawsuit. The other thing that we may consider is if we can protect ourselves from individual liability, we can also consider dissolution of the branch.
Okay. All right. Are you going to expand on look into that a little more with the attorneys and give us?
Yeah, they have already opined that and their opinions, and we have that, and I have no problem in getting something out because I think that's a legitimate concern that the branches have, their BECs have. We don't want to see you go through what Carl Mason described with his branch. There was $50,000 spent on just defense of that case, $50,000 in settlement, $51,000 in settlement. That would bankrupt most branches. We are trying to protect from that situation, and we're saying that we will create some type of protection to protect you as long as you're following your corporate governance requirements and having meetings and minutes and elections and all that sort of thing. We will help you through this to the best of our ability as a state organization.
How does dissolution of the branch protect the BEC members?
Well, as long as there is no willful or wanton or gross negligence, there is no individual liability.
Okay.
I got one more thing I would like to comment on. Lee Lamp mentioned earlier that food poisoning is a bacteria, and your attorney or the waiver that the attorneys want or the insurance companies, they exclude bacteria and other forms of things. How are we going to deal with something like that where we get food poisoning? Same case again. It can be led back to bacteria.
Yes, sir. That is dealt with in our Form 63 and 64, and proof of liability coverage by the caterer in coverage, naming the SIR organization as additional insured. There would be insurance for that if the caterer serves the bacteria and somebody gets sick. That's why we have Form 63 and 64.
Okay. And Stu, I just want to comment. This is the first time I've been in on one of your meetings. I think you've been doing a great job. Listening to this meeting and listening to the.
When I started out, I didn't have a gray hair in my head. Now I do.
Keep up the good work.
Oh, okay, moving along to Guy Rector, who's next from branch 45, if you like to unmute and speak.
My question is, on all this paperwork that's going to be generated, who do you see on the branch level that's going to be handling all of this and be responsible for it?
You know, that's basically going to be a decision of your branch BEC. You know, hopefully it is not going to be a protracted situation where we're doing this for, you know, another year. You know, we've gone 14 months without meetings, and you know, things are starting to open up, and you know, we're starting to get towards immunity in June. So hopefully it isn't going to be a protracted thing. We're just going to have to hang in there.
Well, I understand this, but this is going to generate an awful lot of paperwork, and somebody's going to have to be responsible. I mean, ultimately the big sir, but there's got to be somebody within the organization, and we're all volunteers. And this is putting a tremendous load on these individuals that's going to be responsible for this.
Yes, sir, it is. And I understand that. And, you know, I don't have an answer. The only answer I have is that I hope it's not going to be a long, protracted situation. You're going to have to find somebody.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, moving on to the next person, Richard Blackborow, branch 35, if you like to unmute. Oh, you are. So carry on, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry to revisit the answer to a question that my big sir Stan asked a few questions ago, but I am totally confused now about your comment that said that these protocols don't apply to outside activities. As someone said, the protocols absolutely do. So if you either need to change them or you need to redo the protocols for the other activities like golf that have already been approved.
You're absolutely right. I brought it up on my screen. It does apply to indoor activities. So I stand corrected that it does.
Okay, so you're saying now that the waiver, first of all, the waiver says that has to apply to both indoor and outdoor. So it seems to me that all the golfers have to sign the waiver. Is that correct?
That if indoor and outdoor activities.
Okay, that's my first question, and that's clarified. Thank you. So if we have a picnic outside where we invite a whole bunch of guests, they also have to sign the waiver.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I stand corrected.
My second question also applies to a conversation that I believe you had with our big sir Stan about, rather than verifying the vaccination certificates by somebody actually visually seeing everybody's certificate or seeing a photocopy or whatever, that we merely put a statement on the waiver form that the member attests to the fact that he's had a vaccination. I previously heard that in your comments, Stu, that wasn't enough because you talked about belt and suspenders or something. Are you saying that we really do have to verify everybody's certificate?
I would prefer a visual verification. However, if a person is going to attest to that I would, and I will ask Alan Melanco to draft something to this extent, that the person who is verifying agrees to indemnify the branch in case the statement is incorrect.
Well, it seems to me the easiest way is just to add a line to the waiver form that says, I've been vaccinated on these dates. I sign that I have. Why do you need to see the certificate? Because as somebody said in the chat, anybody can fake a certificate at any time.
It's just like a declaration under penalty of perjury, that I agree that the information contained herein is true and correct under penalty of perjury.
Well, it doesn't say that on the waiver at the moment, but
no, it doesn't. But
if you'd like to add that, that would be fine, it seems to me.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, moving on. Will Kaifer, branch 47, your turn if you'd like to unmute and speak.
Yes, I have a question regarding the outdoor activities.
Right, currently we have written protocols for things like golf and bocce, et cetera. But how about social events like a picnic? Do we need a written protocol for a picnic?
No, I think what the protocols that we have drafted will apply to that.
Well, then there's a lot of confusion here because the vaccination requirements do not apply to something that's solely outdoors. It only applies to partially or entirely indoors. So do we need the waiver but not the vaccine confirmation for say a picnic that's totally outdoors?
Say a ladies' picnic type of situation is
Yeah,
what you're
we're going to
thinking
have
of.
spouses and maybe even family.
Yeah, you know, I would follow a vaccination protocol on this as well. I really would.
Well, then you need to change the protocol.
That's fine. And you know, we have done the best we could as a board. The board unanimously approved what we had, but you know, we're not infallible. We, you know, I'm sure missed some things. And as Alan Melanco, who said that, you know, I advised my my tech clients that when you got a product made, you've got to get it out, because we're looking at the 1st of May to be dealing with this. I will deal with that issue and get something out right away for you.
Okay, I have a second point. I chair up until COVID, I chaired a investors lunch meeting group, and the attendees are from more than just our branch. Any area branch member can attend. How do I, as chairman, verify that these other branch members that attend, once we're able to have lunch, have met all these protocols?
You know, the board considered that, you know, because some members belong to more than one branch, or there may be inter-branch activities as well. And so when the branches have these type of activities, they need to have some verification, such as a document from the Big Sur or whoever's keeping these records, that they have followed the protocol.
What you mean? That's a general letter from the other branches that maybe that all their attendees have met the protocols?
I think Rick Sale attempted to address this last week about having like a passport, and that once verified would allow you to go to different branches and do different things. You know, that is still something that's under consideration by the board, so that you would have like a passport that you got from branch 149 when you went over to branch 88 to go to an investors meeting.
Because, you know, we're anxious to get that going again,
yeah, I understand, and we will address that, because there'll be some fine tuning, and that's one of the things that I also wanted to hear and learn today, because you guys are picking up points that not necessarily that we missed, and those are legitimate concerns that I want to be able to address. You know, that's why God, as Derek said, gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, 2 ears to listen to what your comments are. I will address those for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Thank you. Next up would be Terry Hartman, Little Sir from branch 106. I see you're unmuted. Please speak.
Stu, you suggested earlier that this won't last forever, which we all hope. What are the criteria that has been established for when this will no longer be necessary?
I think, you know, again, it is insurance driven. You know, Craig Hofflines has been working with our insurance provider. You know, he's been demonstrating to them that we have taken the steps necessary to protect our members. We want to get the California health department directives when we can reopen. And as soon as we get that, we will forward it on to our insurance company saying, this is what it is, and this is what we're doing. So, I mean, if it was tomorrow, we would be sending it tomorrow. You know, I can't give you the exact date, but, you know, in January, I said that hopefully we'll be immune by June, you know.
Well, yeah, I wasn't looking for a date, just looking for what the criteria is for this to
yes, sir.
Not be necessary.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Next one up, Rob Melrose, branch 146.
Right. A couple of items on food poisoning. You know, you mentioned Form 63 and 64 for caterers, but what happens if someone is at, you know, like when we do wine tasting, we have, you know, everybody brings an appetizer. What happens if someone gets sick from that? Or, you know, there's multiple cooking groups. How are we protected from someone getting food poisoning at a cooking group?
Well, I think the California Department of Health has guidelines about serving food right now at activities. And if you're serving at a wine tasting, or if you have a group that's meeting and say, you know, serves in the kitchen, you know, you got to be very careful about that unless you're properly insured.
Okay. And my other question was on the vaccine requirements. Because
yes,
my understanding is that vaccines aren't fully effective until like about 3 weeks after you've gotten the vaccine. So if someone comes to an event and they've gotten the vaccine, you know, their second shot the day before, are they still allowed in?
I think the term fully vaccinated is the operative word. And I think it's a 2-week window period after the second vaccination.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Next up, Rick Harris, sorry, branch 161. If you like to unmute and speak,
yes.
yeah?
Yes, hopefully I'm unmuted now. So someone else asked one of my questions, so I won't repeat that. But a question I have is, repeatedly the comment has been made that this is insurance driven, but from my understanding, at the end of this week, we don't have insurance coverage at all for most of the concerns we're discussing. So is this not really liability exposure driven, and not what is the relationship to our insurance coverage at you know, effective May 1st? And
okay, let me see if I can address the question first.
What happens to our insurance premiums if we lose coverage for most of or such a large amount of the risk that we've incurred in the past?
Okay, let me see if I can answer this. We still have insurance coverage, you know, for the members, for the officers and directors. We just excluded if a claim is made for, you know, a communicable disease such as COVID. Okay, so, you know, that is the exclusion that's there. Our insurance is still the same for other areas that we're involved in. And now our $50,000 policy that we pay each year, and each member pays about $5.25 for, you know, covers, you know, you and your guests and your wife and whatnot coming to these events. But what we're trying to do is carve out as much protection that we can for the reduction of coverage for, you know, claimed losses due to bacteria, communicable diseases, including COVID.
Well, I think I understand that. We're covered for golf balls hitting people, bike accidents, things of that nature.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if that's it, Rick.
Oh, well, that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Fred Warren, you're up next. If you'd like to unmute, please. That's Fred Warren. Yep.
Fred Warren, Big Sur at branch 188. You know, I've been listening to all this and I'm hoping I got the bottom line correct here, that it appears that the submittal of our waivers is the current and ongoing requirement, and advise otherwise that those members who choose not to provide the waiver or the vaccination cards will not be able to participate in activities, inclusive of luncheons. In other words, that participation requires vaccination, even with the use of masks and adhering to safe distancing. But earlier I just heard that the BOTC requirements do not require waivers. We're proceeding.
I misspoke on that.
Okay, Stu, that's good, because that where we're going on the BOTC is that we're requiring proof of the vaccination as well as the waivers. Those people that will not provide that won't participate.
Yes,
period.
sir.
I don't think there's anything more, is there?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear your last comment.
What I'm saying is that that's it, pure and simple. If they don't want us to provide the documentation we've required, the vaccination cards and the waiver, they do not participate.
Period.
Period.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have 4 more hands raised. Do you think it's a good idea to draw a line after those 4, Stu?
That'll be fine. That'll put us about the clock.
Yep. So the ones coming, or is it 5? Fred Wackowitz, Doug Imbery, Chris Crowley, Bob Welty. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 of you. Yeah. So we'll start the last 4 with Fred Wackowitz, please.
Hi, I'm Fred Wackowitz, 116 Little Sur. Just to comment on efficiency on how to handle all the paperwork. And our BEC is actually meeting tomorrow to start shaking it out. But here's something for you to think about. Most of us all have a spreadsheet or call it a database of all our members. I would say consider using the same thing because all your members are already on that list. So if you think in terms of a spreadsheet, now you only need 2 columns, additional columns on that spreadsheet. One that says you have a waiver and one that says you have a vaccination verification. And so now all you have to do is check that box when you have your members submit the waiver and a picture of their vaccine card or vaccine certification. So that's just a thought on our part to make it easy to deal with. And further, that means that you don't have to produce a list of everybody that does have the vaccine. If you're like us, 95% of our people already have the vaccine. So you just have to produce a list of those who do not have it. And the list is going to be small. So when you have your activities, the activity leader or the lunch leader can have the list of the 5 or 6 people that don't have the vaccine and waiver and know who they are. So that's just a thought. So I offer that for your consideration.
That would be up to your BEC. It sounds like an excellent idea. And, it sounds like something will really work for you. And I congratulate you for coming up with those thoughts. And I hope that other branches listen.
Okay,
hey, Derek, this is Greg Putnam, and I have had my hand up 4 or 5 times. You didn't mention my name, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
I'm sorry, I don't see it on the list at all. After we've had Bob Welty, I'll call on you. Sorry, your name again?
Greg Putnam, treasurer, etc., 157.
Okay, we'll come back to you, sir. Doug Imbery.
Yeah, in following
Same with me, Derek. Same with me, Derek.
Okay, hang on. That's Chet
Yep.
Winter. Okay.
Right. Yep.
Okay. I'll come to you. My apologies.
I had a comment rather than a question in following what Fred said about who's going to keep track of all this. We have created a safety and health manager in branch 103 who is in charge of all of our, safety and health issues. And right now, 99% of that is COVID. So you might consider establishing a safety and health manager in your branches to manage it.
Great idea. Thank you.
Okay, next up. Thank you for being very brief there. Chris Crowley, branch 113, if you like to unmute and speak.
Hello to all. I just got to say, today I was under the impression that Biden and the CDC this week is going to say all outdoor activities with no mask and no social distancing is going to be good to go. If anybody's heard anything like that, you can comment on that. And I believe what we've done here today is pretty much covers ourselves that we're not going to be negligent and we're going to be just fine. I know I can walk off the curb in 2 minutes and I can trip and fall and bust my head open, but that wouldn't hold anybody accountable. It's just things happen. So I would like to say we shouldn't get too overwhelmed and concerned and lose sleep over all this stuff. It's great to bring them to the forefront, but I think we're going to be all okay.
Good. Okay, like that. Next up, please, Bob Welty.
Yeah, this is Bob Welty from Big Sur from Branch 11. And I have a question and a couple of comments. The first question is that because we're incorporated under California state laws, does that mean we're not liable for anything that the CDC comes out with guidelines?
I don't understand that comment totally, but I will tell you.
No, what there is there seems to be conflicts all the time between what CDC is doing and what the states are doing and so forth. So is there any connection that we would be liable for?
Believe me, I would love to see the CDC come out and say that, all nonprofit organizations are exempt from liability because they're a nonprofit corporation. Well, unfortunately, only 14 states that have decided that, and that's why we're one of the problems we have because we're in California.
Okay, well, first comment I have is that I don't believe where I am that I'm going to have a problem getting the members that are already vaccinated here, any problem with that. And but one thing that concerns me is I'm having a real terrible time getting volunteers for the BEC. And what's happening with this and everything on liability, it's even going to be more difficult, I believe.
You're probably right.
Yeah, but we'll do our best.
As the golfers say, you got to play them as they lie.
You bet. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, let's grab Rich Houseman, branch 32, and then I'll jump to the other two who came in saying that we'd missed them somehow. So,
okay,
Rich.
thanks. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify. I'm still confused in terms of someone is requiring that everybody have a vaccine certification to play bocce outdoors. And my understanding was that the vaccine is for events that are either partially or wholly indoors, and that for golf, you just need to have the waiver signed. So please clarify for me.
I think that the protocols that have been drafted apply to indoor and outdoor activities the way they're currently worded.
I think it very specifically says for things that are either partially or wholly indoors, you need to have a vaccine certificate. That's what I read. I don't know what you're reading.
No, I'm trying. Unfortunately, I'm sitting on my iPhone. I can't get my screen up on the computer to look at it. But if you will send me an email, I promise I'll get back to you as soon as I can get to the computer and address that issue.
Okay, thank you.
It appears
Okay.
that vaccine and waivers are two different things.
I know, that's why I'm confused as to why you have to have a vaccine for wholly outdoor activities. But I'll send you an email, Stu.
Thank you.
Okay, we're down to the last two, I think, Stu. There was I got Chet Winter and the guy who was the treasurer. I didn't write your name down, sorry. If the treasurer guy would like to speak up. I think he was treasurer.
Greg Putman, 157.
Yeah,
Thank you, Greg.
yeah, Greg Putnam, 157. I just unmuted. Two things. First of all, does anybody have a suggestion on how we get proof of vaccination? I've had COVID. I mean, I'm through it. I've even been vaccinated, so I've done both things. I've even been inoculated. It doesn't make any difference. But the point is, how do we get people to give us proof unless they come to the luncheon with the proof with them? Is that what we're saying? They have to show up to the first luncheon with the proof with them, or they're not going to be allowed to come in? Or does anybody have any ideas of how to get proof ahead of time? That's the first question.
My understanding is a lot of the fellas, what they're doing is they're getting their vaccination cards laminated. They carry it with them, whether they're going to a baseball game or whatever. So I assume that this is probably what's going to happen when you have a luncheon. They're going to come in and show their proof of vaccination card.
Okay, so, the second thing was, I'm trying to think. By the way, I deal with the roster, I deal with insurance, in addition to being treasurer, so I'm going to be dealing with all this. To get them to, I'll send out and get them to send back the waiver and et cetera ahead of time. I can do that, put that in. I agree with whoever suggested that we, I just will add a column to my roster form. It's no big deal. I can manage that. Yep. I've only got 71 members, so it's not as big as some of you guys. But if we could include this protocol about on the waiver that they have an insurance, I'm sure they have proof of vaccination, that can be added to the waiver. That could sure make my life a lot easier, so I don't have to deal with like two different things.
I think what you could do is download the waiver and just add that to it for your branch.
Okay, I was just thinking it might be something that Stu or whoever might add to the waiver to make it easier for all of us.
Oh, that's a good point.
Stu,
if you like, I could tell you what the state of California says is acceptable as verification of vaccination.
You're probably, out of which document you're referring to?
This is the addendum to the blueprint activity and business tier charts relating to tested and fully vaccinated individuals and sections.
Right. That's the one I was referring to earlier.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about if somebody comes in with some sort of proof and it looks reasonable, I'll accept it because I'm the one that checks everybody in when they come to meetings. So, right. I'm cool with that. This is one of 3 nonprofits that I'm dealing with this with. So I'm trying to figure out, different ways of doing it with different nonprofits. But yeah, that I can deal with that.
Right. You're referring to the State of California Health and Human Services release of April 15th, 2021.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay, then. If we go now to the last of the hands up, or not hands up in this case, Chet Winter, if you like to speak.
Thank you, Chet Winter, branch 13. The waiver that was sent out only deals with COVID. And it strikes me that if you added a paragraph 5, which says that all the branch, state, SIR, and their respective officers, directors, and members are free of liability for physical injury, which is part of a SIR activity. And if you added a second paragraph which says there's a waiver for physical illness resulting in part from a physical activity, that would cover the food poisoning issue, you really wouldn't need liability insurance. Because if everybody signed a waiver, we would all be exempt. And so I was wondering if my branch could add those provisions, and if we can create, I have no problem with the 4 items on the waiver, but I think my branch would like to add 2 of them. And also, we have a member who's an attorney who doesn't like the holds harmless, the branch, and would like to simply state waives liability, because there's a legal distinction between waiving liability and not holding harmless. So my question is, can we revise the
You can
waiver?
add to it as long as you don't detract from it. You can make it more stringent if you want to apply it to your branch. Now, let me tell you this. There has been some discussions as to the viability of waivers. Some courts in California are not very favorable in waivers of liability. And, you know, some courts have been. So there is a conflict of opinions in that regard. What we have done is the fellow who has drafted this document is Alan Melanco, who's a professor at Hastings College of Law, University of California, San Francisco. He teaches document drafting to the law students there. He drafted this document. You know, I think I have addressed your issue before to him, and as he said, that's a good point. And we will follow up on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Stu, just as I have really appreciated the interaction back and forth on email. You've done a great job in corresponding with me.
Well, we're all in this together. That's for sure.
Okay, Stu, what we've done is we've gone through all the hands raised. There are a number of text messages have been put up. I think, I know we have a policy of trying to keep our meetings to 2 hours. So what I'll do is I'll make a copy of the text messages. They should be saved automatically into the system, and I'll let you have them. And if there's any other points that need to be covered, maybe we can put that up on the website as well.
Great. I'll be happy to address any of those or emails the guys send to me. I will get back to you.
Great.
Thank you for.
Hello, are you still there, Stu?
Yes, I am.
We lost you for a second.
No, I'm right here.
Okay.
Could I ask Stu to save me having to look up his email address?
Sure. Let me give it to you. It's STUWILLIAMSATLAKE, then the symbol at gmail.com.
I got it as Stu Williams at alake@gmail.com.
Not at a lake. It's just at lake.
Oh, I
Stu
got
Williams
an extra.
Yeah, you got an extra A in there.
Sorry. Stu Williams at lake@gmail.com.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, Stu, if you'd like to close us down, that would be the end of
Yes, sir.
Your session.
Thank you to everyone that attended. You know, God bless you. Let's open safely and keep our organization as strong as we've been in the past going forward.